Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
It's not about voters. The Trump voters, the super Trump supporters who are sending their last pennies and savings, they seem to have forgotten that the last election was stolen. It was obviously stolen. And yet, what are we going to do? Vote harder this time? You think they need those voters? I went to the midterms over in Maricopa County, Arizona, right? I was in the United States for the presidential elections, which were clearly stolen. Then I went to Maricopa County for the midterms, clearly stolen, right in front of me. I called Ann in Florida. I said, Ann, you're not going to believe it. They're still in the elections right in front of me. I went to two of the voting places in Maricopa, and both of the places, the machines didn't work, and they were sending people to other places where the machines would work, and they weren't working either, right? Anyway, stole those elections too. Why would they need millions of voters to steal the vote when they're already stealing the vote, right? It's not about that. This is, the invaders that are going into Ireland, that are going into Sweden, that are going into London, they're not going in to steal the vote. It's just Americans, for some reason, have got it in their mind. It's about stealing the vote. And if we just, it's a diversion. If we somehow keep them from stealing the vote, we'll get our guy in, right? No, you won't. If they stole it last time, why would they not steal it again, right? That's what it's about. I mean, this is why when I come back to the United States and I travel all over the place, right? And I see this dopers everywhere talking about my freedom, right? You're not being a man, right? It's time to do man stuff. Everybody wants to be a hero until it's time to do hero stuff. It's time to be like our ancestors, or you will lose the country, period. It will be gone, period. There won't be any, hey, we got our Second Amendment. Yeah, there's no border. Millions of people are coming across per year. I've been across the entire border. You know who's helping them get across the border? Border Patrol. Border Patrol. Border Patrol. Border Patrol is loading them up on the buses. They're like little gears and watches. They don't even know what time it is, right? There's a lot of patriots on Border Patrol, but the Border Patrol is loading up the buses. The Border Patrol is giving them the paperwork. The Border Patrol is the one telling the people with cameras to get back, right? The Border Patrol and the U.S. Customs and Border, they're flying into Atlanta every day. They're flying into Miami. They're flying into Dayton. They're flying all over the place. They're flying in from Colombia. They're flying in from Guatemala. The United States government is doing this. The Department of Homeland Security, the camp that you went to, San Vicente camp down in Darien, I was physically present when Mayorkas came. He came on April 18th, I think, of 2022, right? It was sometime. I must have left BASF and went straight back to Panama or something. I mean, it was like it was right around that time. Was it April? It was sometime around that time, right? He was actually, I think, April 18th, 2022. I was physically present when he came down there and increased the flow through the Darien Gap, brought millions of dollars and increased the size of the camps that you were at. You wouldn't recognize them if you go back, Jared. I'll take you back down there. Those camps are so much bigger, so many more buses now. And again, they're flowing around
the Darien. Camp that was like right next to the hotel we stayed at?
Yep. That's San Vicente camp. That's the one I call China camp. There's huge amounts of Iranians coming through there. Highest, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, their office is right next to the camp, right next to the front gate. I almost rented that house that they got as their office, but they got it before me. But Highest, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, has, they're one of the main invasion forces right there. They're constantly in that camp. I mean, seriously, you can walk into the camp from their office in like 1 minute, literally 1 minute. It's like 40 yards away. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, interestingly, I took down I was down there with Ann Vandersteel, Masako Ganaha, Laura Loomer, Brett Weinstein, Dr. Chris Martinson, and some others. And after one of the trips, there was a fire in that camp that you were at, San Vicente camp, the one I call China camp. There was a fire, burned all the records. Weirdly, they say it burned all the records. I don't know. The records could have been stolen. I know that camp very well. I've been in that camp dozens and dozens of times. I know every square inch of it. They could have stolen those records. I don't know. But just so happened there was a riot shortly after we were there, because we were saying, look, there's huge amounts of Iranians coming through. There's huge amounts of Palestinians coming through. There's Egyptians. There's from 150 countries, Afghans, massive numbers of Afghans and Chinese coming through every single day, 24. It's more like a bus stop than a camp now, because if you come in at the right time of day, if you come in the morning, for instance, you'll be out that afternoon. You'll come in, do processing, take a shower, and you're on a bus. You're on the way to the United States at that point. So it's only a camp if you happen to have to stay overnight, and in which case it's just a free hotel.
That's crazy. Well, it's another one of the things that you were talking specifically about. Well, and you kind of mentioned it, that HOP, the human osmotic pressure, but you also talked about the trifecta of the pandemic, famine, and war. And so, I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear your explanation of what that is, because I remember when we were, again, on some of the bus rides and even the canoe ride, we were, right next to each other. And so you were talking about that trifecta and how that is throughout history of mankind. That has always been the condition of whenever a country has fallen, they've fallen based on one of those three things or a combination of those three things. So
go ahead.
Kind of explain that.
Oh, pandemic, famine, and war, they go together. I mean, they are. I mentioned this to you before. I used to say that a lot. I call it PANFO war, so people can remember: pandemic, famine, war, PANFO war, pandemic, famine, war. I was doing an interview 3 or maybe 4 years ago, and a lady said, "You talk about PANFO as if you made it up." She came in; she was a live caller, and I was like, "Yeah, I did make it up." She said, "No, it's in the Bible." And I was like, "Oh man, I plagiarized the Bible apparently." If you're gonna go big. So,
yeah, no kidding.
But I was like, actually, it is in the Bible. That's probably where I got it from. And I said, and so, but pandemic, famine, and war, the 4 horsemen, right? There's the 3: pandemic, famine, and war, pestilence, famine, and war, and then despotism or death, right? And they do go together, and there's specific reasons for it. I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but I won't. But in summary, if you get a big famine, you will get war and pandemic. If you get a big pandemic, I mean a real pandemic, you will get famine and war. If you get one, you'll get the other 2. And then the the 4th, death, or people argue about what the 4th one is. But I mean, whether it's death or despotism, authoritarianism, but those 3, they go together like smoke and fire and heat, I mean, and there's reasons for it. For instance, let's say the yellow fever outbreak in Philadelphia in 1793. A lot of the farmers, they'll just stop farming because they didn't know what caused yellow fever back then. We didn't know that until when? Maybe 1903, 1905, sometime around then. I'm sorry, my memory's lost on yellow fever. Is quite interesting. But anyway, but back during those times, they didn't know what caused it. They just knew a lot of people were dying from it. There's mass graves around the United States for yellow fever in Florida, Texas, right? There was huge outbreaks in Memphis. That's why that's one of the reasons we ended up with the Louisiana Purchase. Thank you, yellow fever. It ran off the French, right? Just like it ran them out of Haiti, right? And plus they had their war going on back in France and they needed the money, but not to go into that. But the bottom line is, the farmers started leaving. So then they stopped farming. Actually, during most pandemics that I've studied, in almost all cases, the government, actually in all cases except for the one that we just had that I can remember, the government's always trying to make it, or the king or whatever, is trying to make it seem not as bad as it really is. Only in this one that we just went through and whatever comes next, monkeypox or whatever, is the government actually trying to play it up like it's a lot worse. But usually they're trying to play it down, like the cholera outbreak in London in 1854, that sort of thing. They're usually trying to play it down because the cities will clear out, the economies will collapse, the kingdom will collapse, right? And the farmers leave their farms, then you don't actually have people farming. That's one of the reasons you can end up going into famine, right? They play into each other. Anyway, the pandemic, famine, war, they have a certain synergy that goes together. And that's why they all three create that HOP, that human osmotic pressure, right? So if you create an actual famine, which the globalists have talked about, and they've done it. I mean, there's been many famines that have been caused by various sorts of globalists, like the Victorian famines, or how about the 1845 to 1854 famines in Ireland, right? That was, the English were hugely behind that. It wasn't just the fungus on the Irish lumper potatoes. Actually, people argue when it actually ended. So, I mean, roughly started 1845-ish. People argue about that, but roughly ended 1854. I get it. For the famine experts, they'll start to quibble, but the bottom line is, those are the bookend years, right? And you saw the Irish Protestants fighting the Catholics, and the Protestants were withholding food from the Catholics, and they still talk about it, man. You should go over to Ireland and go to their museums. They're still sore about all that, right? So, I mean, and that was why we ended up with a lot of HOP, human osmotic pressure. There were many famines in Ireland, but that one in particular, the big one, or there was another one in the 1820s. I mean, there's been a lot, but bottom line is, that's why you ended up with so many Irish around the world, was that human osmotic pressure. And the Irish population has never recovered. I think now there's like, how many Irish were there at the beginning of the 1845 famine? Was it 5 million? I'm sorry, I've forgotten. But I think now it's like 3 million. And actually, it's estimated that there's like 2 million alien invaders now in Ireland. And those are, so 3 million Irish, and those are actually native Irish. They're actually indigenous people. The Irish are, believe it or not. Yeah, white people, indigenous. They actually exist. Those are the Irish people. They are the indigenous people, right? And and there's estimated about 3 million of them, and about 2 million aliens, and they're mostly military age males. So at this point, I'm just going to be directionally accurate. I would say that the military age invaders, males, are going to be roughly equivalent to the military age males, Irish, men, if not actually already outnumbered. And keeping in mind that the aliens, the invaders, I mean, they're being put into straight up military type camps. Somebody has mapped out the locations of all the camps in Dublin for me, and he'll probably watch this interview, and you should see the locations. They're like set up perfectly to control the city, next to the airport, next to the port, next to the main roads, and those camps that they're building, they're using T barriers, Jersey barriers that I've only seen those in wars. Matt Bracken noticed that too. We both watch this. We both get daily briefings. Matt and I get them together. And we get briefings from Ireland daily, and we're watching what's unfolding. And you can see that these camps that are being built, these are straight up military camps. And if you read the book, the Creature from Jekyll Island, which again I just finished it last night, so it's fresh in my mind right now, you'll see him talking about doing things like this, putting in a UN army in places like that, which is clearly what that is. The people that are being installed into Ireland, that's your new army. They're going to replace the Irish. The Irish army's only got like less than 7,000 people, like 6,300, something like that. And you keep in mind, most of those are going to be support people. But the people that are coming in, these are military age males. These are fighters.
So this kind of thing just really makes zero sense to me. Why would the Irish government, the people that are there, why would they allow that to happen?
Oh, easy. Go back to what I mentioned before, brainwashing, right? So they've installed over a period of time, pliable people. I was talking with Mary Lou McDonald. She's the leader of Sinn Féin, which is, the political arm of the IRA. She's dumber than, her IQ is like room temperature. I was out with her. I was at one of her speeches. I went to a bar with her. I don't drink, but it's Irish thing. So we're out there, and I'm asking her about food, and she's like, oh, she's like talking about DEI and all this other crap. I'm like, what about food, Mary Lou? You don't have enough fertilizer, and we produce enough food for 25 million. All the Irish would say that. Every Irish you ask, which I ask a lot, they would all say the same talking point. We export enough food for, I'm like, okay, whatever. if there's one thing that's endemic to Ireland, it's famine, right? So, you will go into famine, right? It's only because we're in this modern architecture, which is being disassembled, which they don't get it because they're just like other cultures around the world. They're in their happy world. Go get your Irish, go to the pub on Saturday at noon. They're getting soused or whatever. And, and they're just asleep while they're being invaded. Oh, we'll stand up one day. No, you won't. Because by the time you notice it's too late, McFly, you're dead, right? You're either going to tell the Irish are starting to stand up. I've done some major interviews in Ireland and they're starting to stand up. But is it too late? There's a high chance, actually. There's a very high chance that it's too late. You can't wait another year. It's probably too late already. So Irish people I talk with every day, they're talking about moving to Russia. I was talking with one a couple of weeks ago. He's already moved to Colombia. He said, I've been warning about this. I've been warning about it for 20 years or whatever. His Irish brethren thought he was just crazy. So he's like, that's it. I'm punched out. He moved to Colombia. He's finished. Right. Mm. So, there's one of your military age males. He's gone down to Colombia, and others are thinking about going to places like Russia. So they'll just be replaced. Right. And then you'll have Ireland as basically an aircraft carrier for the UN army, right? Straight up. The people that don't get this yet, they're so far behind. They're the ones that are going, oh, it's conspiracy theory. It's gloom and doom. I got no time for them. We're in a state of war. This is only time for serious people. It's time for serious people to organize themselves and to begin doing things. There are no good men who do nothing. If you're not a good man if you're not doing anything. The most dangerous thing that we can do right now is talking to these microphones. You and I are doing it. There is nothing more dangerous than talking into these microphones. Look at the Telegram guy that just got arrested in France, right? They're coming for us. They're coming for people like us. There's no question about it, right? It will happen. It's a matter of time. This is the most dangerous. It's time to speak up. You're either going to man up right now, or you're just worthless and you deserve to be a slave. Have fun being a slave.
Yeah, they absolutely want to control all the information that's going around. It's a critical element, and which I think just it threw a huge wrench in their plans when Elon Musk bought Twitter and changed it to X, because that at least there you can actually talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah. Over the years, I rarely talk as directly as I'm talking now, as confrontationally as I talk now, because we've gotten down to it. It's life and death. I'm in that frame of mind I only get when I'm off in actual wars, where I just don't care about any bullshit from anybody, right? Like Joe Rogan, Mr. Dopehead. I don't care. I'm beyond all that. And it's time for men to do man stuff. It's time to man up, right? Or it's over. There's not going to be another chance. That's it. Ireland is probably dead. I think Canada's dead. I think it's gone. I'm just looking at this like an oncologist looks at cancer, right? I'm not here to deliver good news. I'm not here to deliver bad news. I'm here to find what I think is the truth and deliver it. If I'm an oncologist that won't actually give you his actual honest diagnosis, he's worthless. I'm not going to tell you got cancer because it'll make you feel bad. What kind of use is that, doctor, right? I'm a doctor of war, right? War is what I do. That's why I'm in these places all the time, right? That's why I'm here in Thailand. I'm not on vacation, right? I was here for 2 of the coups. There was fighting right outside my window right here, right? I was here there, I'm watching the playing field develop, right? I'm watching conditions being set for famine and tremendous amounts of human osmotic pressure, right? That will just flood the United States. Canada's gone. I really think Canada's gone. That's just my honest opinion. My view. Look at my track record on Afghanistan and Iraq and Hong Kong and other things. Just look at my track record. Just pick out a dart and pick 20 of my random dispatches that I've written in the last 20 years. Yeah. Throw a dart, read 20 random ones and see how they turned out, right?
So where do you think?
I think Ireland and Belgium and Luxembourg and Netherlands and Germany and Sweden, France, they are gone unless they get very deadly serious right now right now. And Ireland's probably already gone. And likewise with Canada.
Well, the UK's got to be really close behind that too.
UK's, I was in that big mosque a couple years ago. I went in there with Masako Ganaha, actually. A giant mosque downtown. We went in there with Andy No, actually. I mean, it's just that it's just like, what are you going to do? And look who's behind it. The king. You want to call him the king? King Charles, Mr. Jabber, Mr. Jab Pusher, Mr. Epstein Island guy. You know what I'm saying? They're a bunch of clowns, right? I mean, seriously. Dresses up in his throne, wears his big old hat. Here I am with my staff. He's a clown. They're dirtballs, right? They're nothing. These people are not educated. They're rich, and they have destroyed their own country. They have destroyed the United Kingdom. It's dead. It's over, right? And who's going to be next? You're going to have to get deadly serious about defending yourselves. And waiting to, I keep hearing people talk about, I got my AR-15, I'll be safe. You're a clown. If you think your little AR-15 is going to save you, you're a clown. It's time to man up. You got to get organized, right? These people are very deadly serious. The ones that you saw coming through the Darien Gap, they're not on dope. These are high testosterone men, right? They're stabbing people across Europe right now. They're killing people daily. They take cars and run them over. They rape the children. They rape the women. They rape the men. They rape the boys. They'll rape a man as quick as they'll rape a child. All these pretty boys that I see in Japan, these pretty boys I see in Thailand, these pretty boys I see in the United States. You go down the street signs and you see these pretty boys. You can't tell. Well, isn't he pretty? Looks like a little girl, right? China doesn't let signs. There's no signs like that in China. People who've been to China know what I'm talking about. They don't have signs of pretty boys that you can't tell if they're boys or girls. They don't have any of that. They're still manned up. They realize testosterone matters. Testosterone matters. It's time to get off the dope, get off the alcohol, get off the couch, and get organized, right? And start doing things. This is it. You're down to the wire, right? We're doing the most dangerous thing right now, talking on these microphones. There is nothing more dangerous that can be done than telling people that it's time to do something. You're not going to win by, you're going to go vote harder, push the button harder like a pigeon, right? What's it going to do? What did Ted Nugent say? Bah, right? I mean, seriously, we're down to it. Men, it's time to man up.
It's slinging some serious stuff there, Michael. So, yeah, I mean, again, in the overall conditions of the world, I mean, I understand. Okay, so that piece that you're talking right now is literally putting us in a emergency mode. Is the aliens, the immigration, but the famine part is another part that really bothers me. I mean, I heard when you were talking to Jordan Peterson, and you were over there in the Netherlands. The reason that the Netherlands farmers were, driving, they're leaving their farms and they're driving into Brussels and wherever, and spraying manure all over the government buildings there. What is going on? I think between what they're trying to do with the Brussels and the land grab, and I don't know if you've heard the 30-30, what's going on in the U.S., where they're trying to lock up 30% of the U.S. land for the climate change people. But between Ukraine with, a third of the wheat for the world, what's happening in the Netherlands, and now what's happening here, why would, well, again, I think we've covered the why, but how big of an effect is all of that as an accumulative, if I'm saying that word right, is that all going to be contributing to the famine that's headed our way?
It's all part of the plan. The climate scare nonsense, right? It's completely not. The only cult people never see is the cult they're in, the climate cult, the Trump cult, the Biden cult, the Clinton cult before, right? I got to have a woman as a president. The stupid cults like that, right? I gotta, you can't even make up this stuff. I mean, that's how low the IQ has gotten now. We got to have a woman president, regardless of their brain level, right? Got to have a black woman president. Is not even black. She's Indian, right? It's like, you can't even make up this stuff. I mean, so listen, read the book. I just finished it last night, so it's on my mind. The Creature from Jekyll Island. They talk about the farmland. The author Griffin talks about, he's what, 92 or 93 years old now. That guy's never going to die. That guy's going to live to immortality with the things that he's published and told people about for decades now. I mean, he's warned Americans about the Federal Reserve and the farmland and these, the media, which has been bought in bulk for more than a century. Again, everybody who thinks that they remember when media was honest, you don't remember when media was honest, because if you're alive watching this, it was not honest when your grandparents were born. It was already captured long ago. You just remember the time when you didn't realize what you know now, right? That's what you remember. It was all part of the kayfabe, right? It's our Constitution and our incredible founding fathers. Those people were brilliant. They didn't go to their government funded schools didn't exist. They were, what did Benjamin Franklin say? Be like Jesus and Socrates, right? I mean, those guys, they were incredibly intelligent. You should go back and just read the sort of things that our founding fathers wrote. The Constitution and the government, the United States of America that they bequeathed to us was meant for a much more educated population than we have now. It was meant for a population that is not just into smoking dope and watching Joe Rogan, right? People who think that they're men because they watch UFC and they go and can put people in headlocks, so they're all manned up now. You know what I mean? Big deal. It's a big deal. You're a good UFC fighter. You got people from Haiti. They're going to show up to your door with machetes and chop you to pieces, right? You and your UFC with your AR-15, right? These are machete cultures. They're here, right? Rwanda style. What I'm getting to is it's time to study up, man up, testosterone up. Don't put up with any of these pretty boys anymore. Don't treat them as equals. Stop treating them as equals. They are not equals. People that will not help defend our women and children and our country are not our equals, right? It's time for men to do man stuff, period. If you're not a man and you won't stand up for our country, you are not my equal. You're a slave, and I don't care about you anymore. I care about men and women who are going to stand up for our country. That's it. For those, I'll give my life. But for the rest, got no time for you.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. And I'm telling you, it's even 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when we were down there, and I first met with you and met Chuck, everybody else, and you took us into the Darien Gap. Back then we thought the problem was bad, but here we are 3 years later. It is so infinitely worse than what we even imagined, when we were down there.
No, it's not worse than we imagined. It's exactly what I was saying. That's why I was in the Darien Gap.
Yeah.
It's not worse than we imagined. Go back, throw a dart at the things that I was publishing. I was predicting this, as were many others. It's not me being Nostradamus. There's a lot of people. Griffin in the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, he's predicting this back in the 60s. I mean, that guy was predicting this when I was in diapers, right? You should look at his old stuff in black and white in his films, the things that he's talking about when he's a young man. And now he's like 92 or 93. He's on Twitter. Still, that guy is so accurate. He's unbelievable, right? There's a lot of people that saw it.
So what was he
ignored.
seeing?
They got sidelined. It's very clear.
Yeah. But back in the 60s, what was he seeing that made him say what he did?
I don't know, but you know what? I was looking at his Twitter last night, and I'm going to reach out to him. And when I was going to bed last night, I was thinking of questions that I can ask him, because old men like that and old women like that are gold mines for wisdom. And you got to mine them while they're still here, because that's one of the questions I have is, how did you notice this? Right. I was reading his biography and studying up more on him. Like I didn't notice this until well into adulthood. Right. And he noticed it when he was much younger. How did he notice that? But I do remember when I was younger, a lot of the older people back then would warn about stuff like this. They would. And they were often sidelined. Oh, they're crazy or whatever. But it turns out they're not. I mean, I remember my grandmother saying stuff like, she said, one day you're going to be buying bottled water from the stores. And I'm like, Granny, who's going to buy bottled water from the stores? Don't you sass me, Michael. I'm like, no, Granny, nobody's ever going to buy bottled water from the stores.
Just drink it out of the sink.
I mean, that's my grandmother. She didn't go to Harvard. And all these things that she would say, I mean, like, I call her like Granny Alex Jones at this point. You know what I mean? Because I wish if I had the wisdom or a tape recorder, I would have just put it on whenever my grandmother and grandfather were talking. I'd have been like, hold on, let me go get some new batteries and get this thing going. Because so many of these things have just come to pass. Their generation saw it. They lived through the Great Depression, which was manufactured by the Federal Reserve and others. The Great Depression never had to happen. It never had to happen, right? Read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and you'll see what somebody, when he was a young man, he was born in 1931, Griffin, right? The author. He's still alive. He's still kicking. I don't think the guy's ever going to die, because people like that don't quite die. They just keep living on because we'll take their word and keep spreading it. He's planted his mustard seeds, right? I mean, but the point is there's people from that generation who clearly saw it. We just have to listen to them.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, I know you've got more people to meet with, man. So I appreciate everything you've talked about. Tell me or tell my audience where they can find your Substack and everything else that you're publishing.
My Substack is just my name, Michael Yon, Yankee Oscar November, YON, Yankee Oscar November. And I'm on X pretty much daily. And I'll be back to the United States soon enough and watching these things unfold and warning as many people as I can. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island, and you're going to see a lot of this stuff unfolding. The guy was born in 1931, Griffin. Pay attention to that guy.
Yeah, well, there's some wisdom like that back in our grandparents. I mean, my grandparents were ranchers and farmers, and I wish a whole lot more people, like in Washington D.C., would listen to them, because they
I shouldn't say pay attention to that guy. I should say pay attention to that man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
He warned about this. You read that book, and people in our grandparents' age, why did they see it, Jared? Why did they see it? Why did they see it and our generation suddenly didn't see it?
Yeah, they didn't have the stupid distractions that we do.
Yeah.
For one.
So it's time for us to pick up the baton from people like Griffin and our grandparents and do exactly what we're doing now. Tell as many people as possible, wake them up, take no prisoners when it comes to man children, or as they call them in Japanese, bearded boys, right? I mean, all these pretty boys and all this, got no time for them. No time for them, right? You want to go smoke your dope, go smoke it, right? Have fun. Yep. I will not be knocking on your door when the time comes. You will not be given the secret passageway. You know what I mean? Because we don't want your dopers around in our camps, right?
Right on, brother. Okay. Well, you keep yelling loud out there, and be safe.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.